Hello and welcome back to Angry Nord Gaming. I am your host, or one of your co-hosts, I should say, Kenny. I have good.
Yeah, I'm Austin, your other co-host, aka Thatch.
We are guestless tonight.
I'm playing Band-Aid Box.
Yep. So, as you may recall from back from where we were, we just cleared up to this burning tree with the evangelist and a bunch of villagers. So we are beset with 3 paths. The Undead Settlement, as I mentioned last episode, is a very, very big zone, and those are 2 of the pathways there that kind of lead into this town. And then over here, past this little well, is a bridge that also leads to another pathway. These 3 pathways don't all communicate with each other, so we'll go with the bridge one first, because it's by itself.
It is. And we actually started going down this way at the end of the last video.
Oh, that's right.
Got into a fight and realized that we were going too far. So, it's a continuation of that. So, Kenny, you actually noticed something interesting about the Undead Settlement today, which is a piece of atmosphere in the music.
Oh yeah, the music is super minimalistic. If you go into this area, you'll notice that there is no orchestra, there's no sort of grand bassy tones or anything like that. And there's a little treasure up there. Let me probably get on top of that building. That's for later. Yeah, and all of the music in the Undead Settlement is just like the gentle wind and creaking boards. And it's super eerie. Yeah,
it drives home just how unnerving this area is supposed to be. And I think it's a very, this being the introduction, the very first area that you go through in Dark Souls 3, other than the Untended Graves, or excuse me, other than Lothric, the high wall of, it sets an interesting tone because it's sort of familiar. It's a farm-looking thing. You sort of get what this place is supposed to be, right. But it's also really off. It's really just sort of a little bit strange.
Yeah, we could go across this bridge, and actually look at the little path down there that you totally missed. But I'm bothered that I got blow darted, so let's go find out where those guys are getting on the roofs from. There's a little path over here, and then here is probably one of the most annoying parts of this stage. Where it's just thralls with blow darts, being on roofs.
It's the don't stand still area.
Yeah, this is one of those parts of Dark Souls where they, to make an area more complicated, that has 2 levels of elevation, i.e. the floor you're fighting on and the floor above it. They go, what's going to make this area hard to get through? I know, we'll put archers of some kind on that second floor.
And it's going to be bullshit.
And boy howdy, does that work.
So, oh hey, did you get to take a look at my my character's model?
Not much.
This is something that I meant to mention as we went through the opening stage of this area, but you meet the pilgrims on the shattered bridge at the very opening of the Undead Settlement. And those guys have very interesting, sort of bizarre-looking turtle-ish appearance. And that design is actually repeated in the cleric starting outfit.
Right, what you're wearing with that big thing on your back?
Yeah, the turtle shell is sort of a repeating thing for holy men and for, Yol is actually a sorcerer.
But pilgrims. People that are on a pilgrimage.
Yeah, and it's never explained. It's just, that's a design choice for some reason.
Yeah, well, we can talk about it a little later in the architecture of later levels, but right now we have an NPC. So let's see what this bundle of individuals stuck in a cage has to say.
Never coming back. So come into the cage and become Nana's sheep.
Okay, so that's weird and cryptic at best. Um, something
What?
about
Cryptic in Dark Souls?
yeah. But like even in like Dark Souls 1 crypticness, the characters still said like sentences that were grammatically reasonable.
Yeah.
Where that guy is like, Nana's got her friendly gone, and now her grandson has a cage. He always has his cage. It's like, what the fuck? But if you follow on, you can see this fella looking like he's got a cage on his back. Oh, you're gonna need to throw yourself off a cliff, buddy.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
I can't do this part with you here.
Right.
And this is
Found a
kind
cliff.
of good.
Found a cliff.
Rest in peace. That kind of bothers me that a lot of the interactions with NPCs is locked when you have other people on. But I somewhat understand it. So you kind of have to sneak up on this dude because he will attack you if you run up to him from the front. And while we have not encountered any of this type of individual before, there's a couple of reasons why you probably wouldn't just think that he's a super cool guy to hang out with. One, he's carrying a big old weapon, and I really hope he doesn't see me. Okay, he's just gonna ignore me, which is great.
I think he gives you a little bit of grace.
Yeah. So you are like just invited by this guy to step into this cage that's on his back, which is really weird. But hey, free ride. So there's that. This is a sort of a nod to a couple of other things that happen in other Dark Souls games when it comes to how to get involved with certain covenants. And that's what this is. This is you getting involved with a certain covenant. And he just throws you off a cliff out of the cage, and, you know, that's pleasant. But here you are in this.
Pretty rude, really.
It's rude, but like, I don't know. this whole circumstance is really weird. So that entire cutscene goes on without a sound, no dialogue, nothing to sort of clue you in as to what you might be or might not be trying to do here. But you can see this guy walking around, and there's only one source of light, so you're naturally drawn to it. And it's this person with a funny cone-shaped hat.
Well, what's up? This pit is for hollows, not for the likes of you sane folk. Or perhaps you are a hollow, posing as otherwise?
So you can say whether or not you are a hollow. We're going to say indeed, even though we aren't necessarily, because we want to be on this guy's good side.
Fine.
And lying to strangers can get you free stuff.
But we'll all be mad soon enough.
Life lessons, kids.
Life lessons, everybody.
Well, so
It's also very fitting the
etch it on your heart if you feel
the covenant that you get out of there makes you into a mad. It's that whole covenant is just associated with madness, which is I think why it's so obscure and just illogical that you talk to a bunch of dudes in a cage and they speak in fractured sentences, and then you go and hop in a cage on a dude's back, and the whole thing is just about madness.
Right.
Which doesn't really help you figure it out any when
No.
you're getting into it, but
It's just a weird, contrived series of events that gets you to where you're trying to be. So we're back. Got Thatch back. Got my Covenant item, which was my little reward for side questing. Let's see if I can find it in my inventory real quick. Not makers. So you have an entire equipment slot in this game dedicated to what Covenant you're in, and we're going to go ahead and do Covenant list for the time. But all the Covenants do is provide potential rewards for turning in the item that you get by doing what the Covenant wants you to do, which is for like naughty Covenants, it's like invading people and killing them. For the nice Covenants, it's invading someone else's world who has a baddie in their world, and then getting the baddie out of there, and then the reward for that. And you get rewards for turning in 10, and then a total of 30 of those items. And if you want to know what all those are, look them up. It's just going to take too long.
Yeah,
But
it's really very varied things, like anything from weapons to armor
Spells.
to spells. I think it's mostly spells.
it's a lot of it is spells. So anyway, let's talk about this. Well, one last thing on Covenants. Covenants, essentially, all they do is determine how you interact with other players online. That's it. So this is a fun little conflict here. There are these easy dudes to just mop up and kill, but they are a trap.
Oh.
For that. And that will probably be your player death.
That's that's what happened to me the first time I came through here, and you made fun of me for that shit.
Yeah, so the game has taught you several times at this point that exploding barrels exist and what they look like. And these guys up here have lanterns to showcase that they're there at a distance. And if you use your eyes, there's a lot about this very, very deadly trap that you can just absolutely circumvent. And talking about circumventing this combat, man, it's gonna take like 10 arrows to really that. You can sort of negate that conflict by just, you know, being reckless and rolling through all the barrels like my buddy's doing, or by shooting the bomb throwers at a distance with your arrows. So this big guy is big. He has a couple of things going on that are worth talking about. Like, he's wearing a gigantic door in his back, which should immediately translate to players. You cannot backstab this guy because he's wearing something.
At least if you try and backstab him and you can't, you'll be like, oh, duh. He's got a great big door in his back.
Yes. But yeah, he swings big, heavy weapons with big, heavy damage. He will be a staple in upcoming combats to sort of beef up the difficulty of encounters.
That guy actually has an extra mechanic working for him. Or at least other enemies of that type using that weapon, the great big pot.
The cup there? Yeah.
Yeah, which is that if you do the thing that you will most likely do when faced with a giant enemy,
just give him space and try and learn what his moveset is.
Yeah, run away from him a little bit. And then he throws his giant pot at you, and that thing will one-shot you if you haven't enough vitality yet.
Thank you.
So, if you do that, he then pulls out another weapon and is even more dangerous.
Yes, so you want to try and stay close to him and fight him with his cup.
Yep.
Because it's an easier weapon to negotiate. Anyway, so that little thing we just kind of skipped over, you can see this little ridge down here from the stable that we came from, but there's no real surefire way to get here, so you have to drop down. This is the sort of first time, and it's a real big lesson, of teaching the player to not just look up like they've been teaching you throughout this entire game, but to also look down. And that sometimes that there are treasures, and in this case a bonfire and much more, at your fingertips, but all you have to do is go down and find it.
Yep, it's also yet another way to circumvent that fight, which is quite difficult, especially if you haven't figured out about the bow yet.
Yes, if you haven't thought about the good usages of the bow. So right here we have someone of interest. There's a little person locked in a cage.
Aha, unkindled, are we? Welcome to my abode.
Oh, it's his home.
Onyx, an old pyromancer, a crow in his cage, as you see. But here we are. I hear care to learn some pyromancy.
Yes, we want to learn pyromancies.
Most wise. A chance to reiterate. I am Cornix of the Great Swamp. The pleasure is mine.
So he's a cool dude. He's, he was really just for some reason, super cool with just being like, well, I can just live in this cage forever. What are you doing? Throwing firebombs?
Yeah, don't worry about it, man. I'm gonna just throw firebombs.
Anyway, so
got him.
Cornix,
come on.
Cornix of the Great Swamp is your pyromancer teacher for most of the game. You will find items, and we'll talk about those items later, that will expand his shop of pyromancies. Pyromancy is one of the 3 types of schools of magic in this game. One being sorcery, traditional sort of arcane magic. Miracles, which are your faith-based divine spells. And pyromancies, which in this game utilize both your intelligence and your faith stat to discern their power and what spells you can use. And
they all get different types of spells, and they're all sort of
Yeah.
like, for being similar in that they are all magics, like schools of magic, they're all also vastly different in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh no.
Hey, don't get gnawed.
Are you out of Estus, or are you just like choosing to not heal?
I have one left.
Oh, that's a grab. Oh, I got the Evangelist gloves. Yeah, put those on.
Not
See how
bad,
they
though.
stack.
Not the swaggy, yeah. Did you get
They
this item?
they are slightly weaker in the defense department, but they have much better resistances. So we're gonna put the gloves on.
Item.
Item? Where? That's an ember. Very useful. Anyway, so we clear out these guys, and that's just, you know, we didn't really stop and like articulate about that conflict much because there's not a lot to say. It's just kind of a big fight.
It is. Things in this area, at this point, you've pretty much seen all of the enemies that they have that the undead settlement is going to throw at you. So at this
say
point,
that.
they're just giving them to you in different combinations.
Right.
You know?
And some of them are patrol, some of them are like bastions of defense, which that one was. You gonna heal, buddy? Or are you out?
Oh, I got one back.
So it's funny that you said that that was pretty much all the enemy types we're going to encounter, because we are about to go to the last enemy type of the area that we haven't encountered yet, and are a staple of enemies in fantasy genre as a whole, and Dark Souls as well. Giant rats.
Yep.
Oh, go.
We're low level.
I love this fucking encounter right here. This is. Oh yeah, do that.
Forgot.
You forgot you were a cleric, and that you have
I
healing
forgot I
spells?
was a cleric.
So this is a brilliant little fight encounter where you can't really see anything through there, and then you see movement, and you're like, whatever, more rats. And you're correct, but not entirely so, because it's not just rats, it's giants.
Ooh, good job, buddy.
Yeah, he doesn't really hit
They
that
just
bad.
use body slam. Rat-a-tat. Use body slam.
This is definitely Raticate, dude. So, the giant rat, first time you kill it, you can kill him in future endeavors. The first thing he gives you is the Bloodbite ring, which loses your bleed resistance. And since we have 4 ring slots, we're going to equip it. The Fire Clutch ring that we got earlier near the execution site with the bomb throwers is the Fire Clutch ring, and it increases your fire damage by like 15%, but it makes you take more damage. So you take extra damage, but you deal extra damage if the primary form of damage you deal is fire.
Yes.
So,
With opening that door, we've now actually, well, we found a bonfire, but interestingly, we have now come out at the sort of middle of one of the other paths leading away from the tree in the middle of the undead settlement.
Correct.
The first place we fought in.
so we accidentally got into a fight, kind of one of the tougher ones in the area.
Yeah. And I'm at Estus, so you're about to have fun with this by your lonesome. Wish I could backstab you. The fun thing about those guys, the Saw Boys, is that they don't like stopping. They don't ever really chill.
Yeah, they can easily combo you to death from a full health bar, even if you're one of the bulkier classes like the warrior that I play.
And it might be something that you learn the hard way when you're like, okay, 1, 2, 3 hits. Now I can probably run in for a nope. 5, 6, 7 hits. Wow.
Man, we're bad at killing them.
Dogs are tricksy.
But something that's really fun about those guys and the giant rat is that the giant rat gives you the speed resistance ring, and these are the first enemies that you encounter that deal damage. And it's very possible, like you've kind of seen here, to get that ring before you encounter it in the first one. So here's another NPC. Another one of those enkindled. Faces Undead.
No matter. If you've any sense, go for you.
So this guy's not too nice. But man, you got cool looking armor.
You face dead. enough death to leave you broken.
So, we are coming up on the end of the episode here with a bunch of, like, end of the roads. This is a doorway that cannot be trespassed with a phantom, so we'll talk about that area in a future video. And I think, well, we're just going to end it, and we'll talk about the last third of the Undead settlement in the next video. What do you say?
It sounds good. All right.
All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed us tackling this second leg of this very large zone. Any last thoughts?
Nope. I think we're good. Say goodnight.
All right, good night, everybody.
Night.